Shalom, shalom alechem, it's Zara. I am back for another video. Obviously, you're watching it. So I'm going to not disclaim, but preface this video with this may make you mad, this may make you sad, this may just make you so angry with me you just have to unsubscribe. This may enrage you to the point where you need to like send me hate mail or like write nasty comments on this video. I understand that. I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. I'm fully aware that what I'm gonna say is probably not popular opinion. I'm not gonna say probably not. It's not popular opinion in modern society. I don't think it's even popular opinion within many religious societies because the view that I am going to express is two sides. I have a view that is within my worldview, my biblical, my religious, or my faith system worldview that I will maybe not express personally, because if this is about my faith system or my beliefs or religion, then I want to come from the text and let them speak for themselves. And then I am going to speak on it from the viewpoint of my own perception of what I view going on, as well as my political views. And so one of those three things is likely going to be something that you personally disagree with. I know that. I'm okay with it. It's taken me a while to decide if I ever was going to do a video on this topic. I've been thinking about this for many years, actually. My views haven't changed pretty much at all in the last decade, but I have thought about it for probably just as long, about a decade, whether or not I ever wanted to do a video on it. I've done maybe public posts, I've brushed the surface a little bit, I've thrown little nuggets out there, but I've never done a full sit-down video like I'm gonna do today. And if I'm honest, has it given me anxiety? A little bit, but this is something I feel is important to do, and I want to just, my goal, you guys know, if you've been here for a while, if you watch my channel over the years especially, you know that my goal is often not to polarize anything more than it's already polarized, but often my view is to cut a lot of the emotional stuff out of it, get down to what does the text say if you believe in it, and then just maybe sometimes express my own viewpoint and just say, hey, this is how I see it, take it, leave it, I don't care, you know, whatever, do what you need to do with it. So I do want to say that. Of course, the title of the video hopefully is enough to let you know if you are in a season where this subject is going to cause you anxiety or stress, personal discomfort, or just mess with your spirit in a way. I'm begging you, get off of this video now. I know you're maybe interested in what I have to say, but I don't want this to be something that causes emotional distress to the level that you're affected in your daily life. So with all of that said, I will begin. I'm gonna primarily be coming from sources that if you're Protestant, you're going to say are extra biblical. If you are maybe Catholic or Orthodox Christian, I don't know what you'll say. Maybe you'll say extra biblical, maybe you'll say, nope, that's part of our canon. If you are Jewish, you may say, yep, that's some of our ancient sources. It is what it is. But that's not maybe how we view things modern day. You know, that's fine. But what I'm setting out to do here is my worldview is based off of a Judean belief system. So the Judean people that, you know, I'm connected to, organized religions today aside, what did they write about this topic? What did they believe? How is this governed? Why does that matter to me? Because again, these are my people. And even as a believer, you know, on a faith level, these are my faith people. So both ways, you know, ancestry as well as faith. These are my people. So I don't really care what religion my people took as they went on. I'm more interested in how this was viewed, how it was seen in its antiquity. And then I think we all can observe and see how these things have sort of evolved and how people view them today. So I took notes. You guys know I'm a notes girl. Children. But you guys know I'm a notes girl, so I took notes just so I could keep myself from going like too far off. And so I want to start with what I would say is one of the oldest communities that we recognize as Judean people. You know, differences aside, we do recognize that these are one of the ancient groups of Judean people. I don't even want to say like Jews or Jewish, because that might pull Judaism and even offend this community. But so our Samaritans, right? And so when we look at the Samaritan Targum, and as I was doing my research, you know, I learned these things long ago, but I wanted to pull sources and be able to cite these things for you guys who are watching or taking notes, or if you want to go doing your digging. So when we look at the Samaritan Targum, the penalty for aborting a fetus of a completed shape was death. So does this mean maybe a week-old embryo or something like that? I don't know. But whatever that community assumed was a fetus of completed shape. Now, if you guys have had children, if you Google ultrasounds, a sonogram rather, if you have any sort of experience at all, you know that there is a shape of a fetus. So you have an embryo, then you have a fetus. After a certain point, it's no longer an embryo. We know scientifically this becomes a fetus. So a fetus, I would say, is after really like probably like a 6-week mark, 6-7 weeks probably. You know, now we have the term fetus instead of embryo. And we know that it takes shape, and you can see the shape. You can see the sac, and you can often see the shape. And then as, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks comes, there's heads forming, there's necks, there's, you know, eyelids, all of the other parts are growing, and this fetus is starting to lose that like tail, the tail that you often see in the embryonic phase even. And so we know like this oldest, one of these old ancient communities, it was a no-go. So after you see a completed form, then if you aborted that fetus, the penalty was death. And so I say this because I see a lot of mainstream media using modern day contemporary religious Jewish authorities in certain sects of Judaism saying, yeah, like Judaism, it's like abortion's like a woman's right, like kill it all the way up until half the head comes out, like who cares, half the body comes out until the greater part, so until you see shoulders you can get rid of that thing. And that's just the Jewish teaching, and that's just not true. I don't want to speak on behalf of the religious Jewish community, but that is not true. If you go and do your research, then you'll see a very honest explanation of the extremes between sects. So you may have a very liberal, I guess, Jewish sect that's like, yep, up until those shoulders come out, do what you want. It doesn't matter about life of the mother. Literally, it's just up to whether or not you want this kid. And then you see people who are like, that's not really what our rabbis were talking about. We have a strict prohibition, you know, maybe on the Orthodox side, a strict prohibition against just willy-nilly abortion. It needs to be verified by rabbis and doctors that the mother's life is truly in danger, like truly, truly in danger. And in that case, we do what we do with all of Jewish law, break any commandment for the sake of preserving life. And in this case, it's the autonomous life, the life of the mother, and she can go on and bear more children. And so that would be more of the Orthodox Jewish view that I would say is reflected in most of the writings throughout time up until this more contemporary, you know, it's politicized. You know, you have other things going on that are maybe making these views a bit more wide. So I want to bring out Josephus as well. So Josephus was a Jew. He was around in the 1st century, so often you'll hear a lot of Christians even cite Josephus whenever they're trying to prove something about Jesus, about Yeshua, about what was going on. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, because Josephus wrote a lot of things. Some of the things you only see these views expressed in his writings alone, and sometimes you can see them reflected in other writings around that same time period. So in Epion, chapter 2, verse 202, or Pasuk or whatever, like the line 202, it says, the law has commanded to raise all the children and prohibited women from aborting or destroying seed. A woman who does so shall be judged a murderess of children, for she has caused a soul to be lost and the family of man to be diminished. So we see right there, like you can't really, I don't know. That's strong, right? And so Josephus is not a Christian. Josephus is a Jewish man. He's just Jewish. And so he's saying, like, this is the law of the Jews. We know the law of the Romans and other ancient civilizations was not the same as the law of the Jews. So Josephus here is telling us this was the law of the Jews around 1st century time, at least, minimum. So I'm sure that law didn't just spring up in the 1st century. I'm certain this law dates back far back, but certainly before the 1st century, and Josephus is recording this for us. So I do want to also bring up that I was listening to a rabbi speak recently, Robert Akiva, I think maybe was his name, I can't remember. But he was saying that, within Jewish law, there is a law that, or, halachot, so Jewish law, that if you can save a life without endangering the life of the person who's trying to take the life of another, then you're obligated to do just that. So if someone is going after somebody to harm them, and you're a Jew and you see it, if you can take your gun out and shoot them in the leg, maybe, as opposed to the chest or the head, and you cannot unalive them, then you're obligated to do so. So this goes into how the rabbis had their discussions and wrote down these discussions and their rulings when it comes to abortion. So I know the media is all of a sudden caring about Jews and what Jews believe, but there's also propaganda in that, and whether you're for or against, I think everybody recognizes oh, now y'all care, and you're trying to cherry pick our views, and you're only using one view to support politically what you want. So I did want to put that out here. Now, when we go to what some would call early Christian literature, I'm going to call it, it's from the Jewish Apocrypha, the Jewish pseudepigrapha. So this is writings from Judean people or Jewish people dating back before the time of Christ, and then maybe being worked on through the time of Christ up until maybe the 2nd or 3rd century, and often maybe just even 1st century and then stopping. So I want to begin with 1st Enoch 69:12, and if you guys haven't seen my pseudepigrapha, there it is. It's if you have the books, it's in volume 1, I believe, but I did write down the quote too, just in case it took me too long on here to find it. But you guys know me, I like to read from my books. That's why I buy the books. So 1st Enoch chapter 69, verse 12 says this. The 5th is named K, so I'm not going to pronounce the name of the demon here. It is he who revealed to the children of the people the various flagellations of all evil, the flagellation of the soul and the demons, the smashing of the embryo in the womb, so that it may be crushed, the flagellation of the soul, snake bites, sunstrokes, the son of the serpent, whose name is T. And so right there, that goes into talking about there was this specific, demon or a fallen angel, or however you guys conceptualize whatever that's being talked about there, who taught the people, watchers even if you will, who taught the people these evil things. And one of the things that it taught was how to crush an embryo while it's in the womb so that it died, an abortion. And it's important to note that that literally there says embryo. So we're talking about life that's been conceived. So sex has happened, and then 3 days later has happened, and now there's life forming. Conception has happened. From that point on to about probably 6 to 8 weeks, we have an embryo. So this is where some would say, across at least 2 Abrahamic faiths, at least across the understanding of Judean people in antiquity, not just a fetus, so not just after 6 weeks, we're talking about embryos too. Like, if it's fine and it ain't doing nothing or causing any problems, let it live, basically is what it's saying. So I also want to bring up the Didache. If you don't know what the Didache is the teachings of the 12 apostles, and this was written down sometime after Christ died, and probably likely after a couple of the apostles maybe passed away, and they were passing on their teachings to their successors, who were gonna eventually be the heads of the church, the Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, as we kind of know it today. Or even like the Oriental churches. So all of these churches, we'll throw in the Church of Rome. This is the writing that came out. So this is dated back to about AD 85 all the way to like AD 110 maybe, so sometime in there. So this is within roughly about the first 100 years after Mashiach died. And so this says very clearly, Didache, chapter 2, line 2, thou shalt not murder a child. Like, it's just very clear. Thou shalt not murder a child, period. And it talks about whether it's in the womb or without the womb, like just period. Once we deem this thing to be alive, so it's fertilized and alive, you can't murder that. And so the apostles were very clear on that. In the letter of Barnabas, chapter 19, verse 5, this is dated to AD 130. So this is 2nd century time, but it's pretty close. This is midway between 1st and 2nd century. And so this says, you shall not abort a child, nor again commit infanticide. So 2 things can't happen here. Well, 1 thing can't happen here, and it's 2 different ways that it can't happen. And so that's very clear. They're not mincing their words. The apostles of the church, many of which all of which almost, maybe except for 1, but many of which we can say were Judean people, had this view. It's not something that's like new. It's not something that's a Protestant evangelical Christian view. It didn't just spring up out of nowhere. This was the view. I was looking into maybe any writings from women at that time, or just anything like that, and it seems like most women agreed. Like children were a blessing. Obviously back then that was their livelihood, so it wouldn't have been necessarily as like encouraged to like get rid of this so you can go reach your dreams. It was like the opposite. It's like, you need this in order to be something in society. So that also could be the reason you're not seeing that reflected in literature. I've thought about it both ways. Okay, and so my camera, it stops at 20 minutes recording. So this is going to be a long video, guys. I will be so surprised if I don't keep you here for an hour, but I can tell you this is likely going to be the only video I ever do on this subject. So if we're here for an hour, we're here for an hour. I'm okay with it this time. I definitely was not going to try to tackle this within 20 minutes at all. Okay, so the next source we will talk about is from the Sibling Oracles. Will come from chapter 2, lines 280 to 284. Again, I believe this is in volume 1 of the Pseudepigrapha. If you want to go on Amazon, I'll try to link everything below. By the time I edit these videos, I'm so tired, but my kids were with their dads for the summer, so I have more time to edit and, you know, what have you. So anyway, hopefully I'll link it below. But I did write it down, so I'll read that. So that, again, this is the Sibling Oracles, chapter 2, lines 280 to 284. And it says, again, those who defiled the flesh by licentiousness, or as many as undid the girdle of virginity by secret intercourse, as many as aborted what they carried in the womb, as many as cast forth their offspring unlawfully. These and the sorcerers and the sorceresses, in addition to them, will the anger of the heavenly imperishable God also bring near to the pillar around which an undying fiery river flows in a circle. So that's not mincing words. This is specifically talking about the case where a woman, it's not incest, it's not that you were raped, this is, I need to be careful because I feel like they're gonna take down my video. So it's not incest, it's not any form of like, you know, SA. This is simply a woman by biblical Torah standards fornicating. She is choosing to fornicate and to lose her virginity outside of marriage. And don't worry, the men have something too in there, but we're specifically talking about women's choices, right? So this is why we're focused here. And it's talking about a woman who chooses to go have intercourse in secret, or she loses her virginity, whether, you know, she's been lost that, or this is her time where she does. And then she winds up pregnant and expecting, and for the purpose, obviously, of concealing it, for the purpose of shame and guilt, for the purpose, any purpose, she goes and she has the knowledge of how to naturally remove this from her body. Again, remember in First Enoch, it says like that knowledge was given to the people. So various cultures now have this knowledge within this worldview. Even if we just stay within this worldview, various people have this knowledge of how to do this. So then this woman does this. It literally is like judgment's gonna happen, period. Because it's a wicked thing to do. You didn't just deal with your consequences. You know, maybe life isn't exactly how you want it now, but obviously you can move on, things can go really great, but instead of giving it that chance, you said, hey, I'm gonna conceal whatever I did, and I'm gonna unalive this embryo or this fetus or this child. So it strictly forbids that there. So then if we go to the Apocalypse of Peter, and it was too much for me to write down, so I just didn't. But if we go to the Apocalypse of Peter, it reads in chapter 8. I'll read it to you guys. So this, again, is the Apocalypse of Peter, the long version. You can just Google it and get a PDF. That's what I did. I don't necessarily need to own it in a book, but it says, and near this flame there is a pit, great and very deep, and into it flows from above all manner of torment, foulness, and excrement. And women are swallowed up therein, up to their necks, and tormented with great pain. These are they who have caused their children to be born untimely, and have corrupted the work of God whom created them. Opposite them shall be another place, where children sit alive and cry to God. And flashes of lightning go forth from those children, and pierce the eyes of those who for fornication's sake have caused their destruction. I could read on. I'm just going to read on. Other men and women shall stand above them naked, and their children stand opposite them in a place of delight, and sigh and cry to God because of their parents, saying, These are they who despised and cursed and transgressed your commandments, and delivered us to death. They have cursed the angel that formed us, and have hanged us up, and begrudged us the light which you have given to all creatures. And the milk of their mothers flowing from their breasts shall congeal, and from it shall come beasts devouring flesh, which shall come forth and turn and torment them forever with their husbands, because they forsook the commandments of God and slew their children. As for their children, they shall be delivered to the angel Temlachos, and those who slew them shall be tormented eternally, for God wills it so. Sorry for struggling reading that. That's just, for me, it's like, I don't know how you could read that, and I guess especially me as a mother, it's just like, gosh, like, I get why that language is strong that way. And I do think it's just massively unfortunate. Obviously, I'm not going to necessarily quote common canon biblical Bible verses. I think we all know, for I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord. And it talks about these plans that he formed while, he knit this child, this human being, this full adult prophet, knit this person in the womb, Jeremiah, in the womb together in secret. So obviously there's a personhood that we believe in the womb. I think everyone knows, so I don't necessarily want to take too much time on that. Of course, we know that the first person to recognize Mashiach, Yeshua, in the womb of his mama in Blessed Mary, was John the Baptist, who was not born yet. So, of course, I think those are obviously proof texts and texts that we hear all the time. So I just didn't feel it necessary. I don't believe in the canonized Bible. I have one right here. No worries, no big deal. All good. It's just I didn't want to waste too much time there. Not waste, but I didn't want to spend too much time there when I feel like everybody already knows those passages. So now I want to come at this from more of I'll come at it from more of my personal perspective, because I think it's an easier flow, and then into my political view. So my personal perspective is, right now there is a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of emotionalism, there's this spiritual energy, and I don't care what religion you're part of, there is a spiritual energy that I've heard the witches, the warlocks, the wizards, the astrologists, the super religious Christian people, the Jewish people, the mystics. I've heard everybody, the Muslims, everybody from everywhere who's got half of a spiritual antenna on has, and just the conscious woke folks, I don't want to leave y'all out, but if you have a spiritual antenna, half, just one half of a spiritual antenna going off, then you know that there's like an energy and forces and a lot of things going on in the spiritual realm that are working together to, in my opinion, bring about that which is powerful for sacrifice. And I don't want my video to be taken down, so this is where we live in YouTube. Read between the lines here, people. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. There is a certain type of blood that has power. We know in our faith that there's life in the blood. We know as Judean people that that's the whole purpose of sacrifice within our Levitical law, that there's energy and power in blood, even that of animal blood, but more so in human blood. We know that the more innocent that blood, the more power. I would propose that, especially, you know, the Christian people maybe, or someone who's not Christian, but someone who does believe in Yeshua and understand the testimony of Yeshua, that we know it was the blood. You know, we know it's the power of that blood, that there's something powerful about this. Again, the more innocent, the more powerful blood, and what that can do when we talk about spiritual forces and energy. I'm just going to leave that there for you. So I think that there is a lot of emotional propaganda being spewed, mixed with lies, mixed with just trying to divide people in order to trigger chain reactions on both ends, okay? Which is gonna still lead to what it's gonna lead to, what the whole argument is about, right? I think if you are on social media, there's no secret that there's the trend going around on TikTok that apparently if you're a good woman of any value, then you'll use a sound with a certain song that has the words, if we go down, or if you go down, then we go down together. And there's a certain message on there about camping and supporting each other. And again, to me, that's all a part of this energy that's needed, and it's almost begging and calling for this act to happen so that one can prove that they are a part of society's good, modern, refined women who are educated and support other women. Otherwise, you're not, you know, you're not a worthy woman. And so I see that divide. I see that to be, again, propaganda. I don't use social media mindlessly. I may be scrolling, but I try to be aware and keep my mind sharp as I'm scrolling, so I'm realizing what I'm taking in and what's the purpose of why something's trending. And so there's that. That would be just my own personal view of what's going on and why I even didn't want to post the video, because I feel like this is adding some sort of energy to it, right? But to me, there's things that you ignore because you don't want to add energy, and then there's things where it's like, this is a vortex of energy, let me throw something righteous in there, or something that I believe is righteous in there, and not necessarily slow this down, but sometimes something that you say can pull somebody back who's getting caught up in the propaganda. So that's really my purpose here. So now I want to come at this obviously from the whole political standpoint and legal standpoint and things like that. Some of you guys know I've been studying from LSAT. Who knows if I'll ever like take the bar and actually try to become an attorney. It's just something that I'm passionate about and something that I wanted to do as a child. So I decided, hey, let me study for my LSAT. So with that being said, I've always been interested in law. I've always been somewhat interested to various degrees in politics. Again, if you follow me on social media, you may know that I am, if I had to define myself in a party, I'm a libertarian. If I have to register to vote and if I have to pick something, then I will register as a libertarian. So I'm a libertarian. I am not a libertarian who, first of all, I think libertarians need to throw away the whole pro-life, pro-choice terms. I think libertarians kind of just live in this world of like, does government have a say in this or not? Should government have a say in this or not, right? And there's various different types of libertarians and degrees to which one is libertarian. So I may be conservative in many ways, probably anarcho-capitalist, but that's something for later. We won't talk about that. But I wanted to be clear that if I take a political stance, like let's say this comes down to a vote, and I need to vote on abortion. So it's coming back to the states, right? So, maybe there will be a vote. And if it ever becomes like something that's like a federal problem, again, that's going to come to a vote, which way would I vote? I would need to vote that unless there is medical necessity, then abortion should not be allowed by the government. Are people going to do what people are going to do? Absolutely. Is that my problem? Not necessarily. Are murderers still murdering even though murder is illegal? Absolutely. Does that mean we should just not make it illegal anymore? No, of course not. Just because people are going to do what they're going to do, even though it's against the law, it doesn't mean that we should remove the law. So my political view holds that pretty much we only prosecute for crimes that have a victim. So victimless crimes such as running a red light, running a stop sign, speeding, parking where you shouldn't be parking, things like this. Those are all like road violations. Not paying taxes, like just things like this. There's no victim. The only victim is the government who made themselves a victim by putting a law there in the first place. Like there's truly no victim. It's a victimless crime. Just why even bother? Like, we're not prosecuting people for these things. We shouldn't criminalize these things. There's no victim. However, where there is a victim, then government has the moral responsibility to enforce the law in order to protect its citizens. And so this gets into how we define rights. And so most people who are that I've listened to who would side with being pro-choice would to some extent disagree with the idea of inalienable rights. And so I died, so I had to cut that last part short. But what I was talking about was inalienable rights. So an inalienable right is essentially the same thing that we would commonly understand as a natural born right, rights that you have just by sheer weight in this country, by sheer weight of being a human being. And that doesn't matter how you became it, like how you were conceived. So whether that was artificial insemination, whether that was, however you became, for a libertarian view, we would even, to some extent, include cloning. Some people would. So, as long as you are a human being, you have inalienable rights. And so oftentimes when I listen to pro-choice people, or people who would maybe fall under that camp in what they believe the government should or should not do on either side, they don't really establish this point of having inalienable rights, right? So it used to be the argument that this is not, it's scientifically, it's not a human being. But science has so disproven that now everyone's had to move away from this whole, like, it's just a clump of cells, like that. It's just scientifically not fact. It's just not fact. And so we can't deal with that argument anymore. So now it becomes, does this scientifically human being, this life, have inalienable rights? And so a libertarian would be like, yes, of course, like, once it's human life, it has this human being, no matter what age or phase you're at, no matter your mental capacity, you have inalienable rights. And one of these rights, obviously, is the right to life, the right to live. This gets into the principle of non-aggression, and the principle of, or the right to not be aggressed. Okay, so this just means that my rights are my rights, but my rights stop. They end. My rights end where they begin to infringe upon yours. So my right to live ends when it infringes upon your right to live. And so obviously this would be, and so that is just, that's what it is. And it doesn't matter about, I want to phrase this carefully. So it doesn't matter what the reasons are for seeking to establish your right to live or to pursue happiness, or any of these things. That doesn't matter when we're talking about the reasons you may want to infringe upon someone else's right. So I can't infringe upon a unborn child, an unborn human being's right to live inside of me for the purpose of winning a gold medal, excelling in school, excelling in my career, just not wanting to be sick, just whatever goal or lofty dream. Even, you know, even these causes are not bad causes. These are good things. Success is good. Drive is good. Capitalism, yay, right? These are all good things. But my right to those things doesn't supersede. I cannot use those reasons to aggress another human being. Again, no matter how old or small or whether or not they live in me. So this is why the whole idea of medical necessity exists. Of course, when we talk about ectopic pregnancies, when we talk about, you know, kind of a miscarriage that the body, we know that there's no heartbeat anymore or something like that, but the body just won't go through that natural process and it needs to be helped along. This is treatment. And again, ectopic pregnancy, there can be, like, you know, as we define life, but it's in a place where it wouldn't be viable. There's nowhere for this to grow, and then it's going to infringe upon the right of the mother to live. And so this is why we would say, in this case, even if it's medically classified as abortion, this would be legal. Now, these things are treatment. Of course, an ectopic pregnancy and treating that condition, which is when an embryo or a fetus, but an embryo, usually you catch it early, so an embryo is implanted, not within the uterus, but unfortunately within a tube, and there's just also called a chemical pregnancy. People will call it that too, but it's there's no viability, like it's not gonna live, and there's no way for it to, and there's no way to get it out of there and into the uterus and get that to attach properly, and for the placenta, like it's not gonna work, and the only thing this is gonna do is kill mom, kill the woman of which this life is in. And so this is treatment. And I live in the state of Texas, trust me, like we probably have the strictest laws regarding this. Some of our laws go back even, you know, it's not like the trigger laws of right now. These are laws that were established in September of 2021 that were like very like boom strict. But at no point, please fact check this, because this is something that's like, it's like aggravating me. It's this propaganda, and it's almost like what I perceive as like fear mongering. And I'm not saying that people don't have genuine fears, because this country historically has been on BS. Historically, this country has done crazy things. Some of us come from, you know, Britain, and so maybe there's that like ancestral fear of the monarchy. But so I get like people have genuine concern and fear for an overreach for this to be removed, but I will say at no point has the state of Texas, which again I'm using this as an example, one because of where I live, and two, everybody hates Texas. It's just we have the most like strict laws. It is what it is. Florida, Georgia, Arkansas, Alabama sometimes follow, but typically Texas is going to lead that charge and being like boom, super strict. Medical necessity is covered. Why? Because even whether the medical code changed and we want to call everything an abortion, we want to call it a miscarriage an abortion, which I know so many people who have had miscarriages are just so pissed to see that, and that is valid. And if that's you, like I swear, I really hope if you find it in you to speak up about it, I hope you do, because I think that needs to change, and I think it is such an injustice to women. It's such an injustice to women. But even though it's medically classified as an abortion, we know that so popular drugs that are banned in Texas right now, except for medical necessity. So again, we have misoprostol, and then we have mifepristone. And so these are drugs that typically are used orally, or, you know, ingested some sort of way, and they're used to help the body, you know, go through that process. And so sometimes that's with an ectopic pregnancy where it is life, and you do need to terminate that, because it's not going to continue to be life. And if it does, it's going to kill mom. Like and it's never going to get to baby be born to status. It can't get to even 21 weeks where, you know, it might survive on its own. It's just, it's never going to happen. And so you have a certain amount of time. Once you detect this, you have to you have to treat this, and you have to terminate that life and move that out of the body. And so oftentimes those are the drugs that are approved to be used. Now, these things obviously, again, can cause actual abortions. And so the medical board of Texas is not going to say, yeah, like, you have migraines, or you have, you know, whatever you have going on in your body, and this is a drug that could be used to treat that. It's going to say, go, the Texas State, you know, Board of Medicine has said, basically, go find another drug to treat that, because this could cause an abortion. And I mean like an actual abortion, meaning like you don't know you're pregnant, maybe you want a baby, we don't know, not our business, but because it could terminate that life and violate the rights for that life to continue, almost as a side effect, we just can't approve this, because that's kind of the primary job of this drug, even though it can be used for other things. And so you will see people sensationalize that. You'll see people say that, you know, they've banned all types of abortions in Texas. But again, you have to recognize what is treatment, what is the body naturally it has done something. And unfortunately, not all bodies are like super geared to go through a full process on its own. And so there's no life currently in the womb, but the body has not pushed it out. So now you need to basically help that along so that the mother can go on in a healing process. That's not an abortion. It's just not. And I think people need to be aware. Now, you can look up, you can even look up health and safety codes on these things. If you go to statutes.capitol.texas.gov, statutes.capitol.texas.gov, and you look up at the health and safety code, section 17, article 1 and on, you will see all of the things listed. You'll get accurate information. You don't need to listen to like the crazy like fear-mongering thing. And I was really triggered actually earlier today. I was watching, I can't say his name, I don't remember his name right now, I just know that I want to say he hosted a season of The Bachelor, and he has written a book, and he hosts Uncomfortable Conversations. I think it might have his name in it. I want to say he's a Nigerian American. I want to say these things are true. I think these things are true. But he was on a live, and he recently released a video of Uncomfortable Conversation about abortion, and it featured women who essentially were all to some extent pro-choice. Some were religious, some had abortion, some, you know, whatever. And I just thought, wow, what an injustice to women everywhere. And one of the women actually had a personal story from the state of Texas, and I'm not going to say, you know, of course, I believe what she said happened, that she had an ectopic pregnancy. Her doctor was afraid to go ahead and treat her. Again, they used the term abort, but to treat the ectopic pregnancy, because she was afraid that the feds, or not the feds, but the Texas state government would come after her and prosecute her. Now, is that a fear that I'm sure some OBs maybe have? Sure, you know, I have a fear of snakes, and I have a fear of all sorts of things, and one can say they're rational, one can say that they're irrational, but what I want to deal with is facts. The facts are is that if they were to try to do anything to her for treating a clear ectopic pregnancy that was documented, and that she could clearly say, this is an ectopic pregnancy, here's the sonogram, here's the blood work, boom, 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 here you go, then, I mean, I don't know her financial situation, but I know if you work in medicine, there's insurance you have to carry, and I'm pretty sure you have a legal team. I'm pretty sure it's a thing in medical school, and that can be something. There's abortion attorneys, so I'm sure that once that goes to any circuit court or whatever type, the Supreme Court of Texas even, that the evidence would show, and she would be found not guilty of any crime at all. Now, should it even go that far? Absolutely not. But if that's a fear, then I think that with the proper documentation, it's just not, it's not something that you need to use as almost like a poster sign for like being pro-choice, right? Because how like, those things don't go together. And again, I just like talked to you about Texas laws. It's all there. It's very clear. It's all very black and white. If you ask me, when I was reading it, I'm like, pretty black and white to me. I get it. But there just wasn't really a representation for women who, unfortunately, in this country, there's a narrative that if you have a child and you maybe are financially struggling already, and if you choose to birth children, then you're just an idiot and you're irresponsible and nobody's gonna hire you, no one's gonna help you, no man's gonna want you, you are scum of the earth and nobody cares about you. And unfortunately, I don't think the church has done a great job with, I don't think any religious religious organization has done a good job filling that gap and stopping that stigma. In fact, I think they're probably the ones that started the stigmas. So there are people who have fallen victim to that in the worst of ways, who find out that they are expecting and that they have conceived, and for them personally it's a blessing, and they want to keep this child and they want to raise this child even though they know it may be challenging. It's going to be challenging no matter how old you are, how much money you have. It's going to be challenging. Like, it is what it is, and that's part of a failure of society, right? That we just make motherhood so hard on women. We make parenthood hard, but we make especially motherhood hard on women in particular, if you ask me, in this country. And some would say arguably in the West, but I say in this country. And so there are women who are being forced to have an abortion because, unfortunately, the pervasive message of today is the only way you're going to win that gold medal, the only way, or the best way even if they don't say the only way, the best way to live your life, to have a life, to be a full, whole person, is to end the life, aggress this life in your womb. And I think that goes beyond any form of like choices and things like that, because we know when we talk about SA that the whole idea of choice flies the heck out the window when we talk about coercion. And if you don't think that telling someone the narrative that you're never going to be anything, that you won't succeed, that your life will stop, that you won't be successful, or that it's going to be so hard for you to be successful, putting a fear in you that you won't be able to do it, or that it'll be so hard that you'll just destroy yourself even if you do make it through. If you don't think that's a form of coercion, me and you probably wouldn't get along very well. Because it absolutely is a fear of coercion. It's psychological trauma, it's emotional manipulation, it's emotional abuse, if you ask me. And so I'm looking at all these things, I'm listening to the rhetoric, and I'm saying, this is not really about choice, and that's not really about life, and no one's about what they're saying that they're about, and no one's really putting their money where their mouth is, and we're not really thinking about why have we built a society that is like this, and we're not thinking about, okay, I want to keep the babies from, being unalived while they're in the womb. What am I doing after the fact to try to, again, make this a better situation and a better actual life for the life that I wanted to protect and live? And if we're not thinking about those things, if we're just saying, oh, adoption, that is crazy, it's absurd to me. If your first thought, your first solution against abortion is adoption, we need to have a very long, hard talk about ownership, about not listening to adoptees, not being real about what you believe, because the first thing on our mind should be, if I could raise money to adopt, if I have the money to adopt, if I have the energy to adopt, if I have the household to support an adopted child, then by golly, I could probably offer all of those things to a mother who probably doesn't want to give her kid up for adoption. Yeah, of course, some people do, they just don't want to be moms. But I would say, from what I've listened to and heard, so many don't. Then we can have a couch, a bed. We can take the couch, give our bed to that mom, since we care about life so much, and say, I will provide for you and that child, or at least for that child that may not, necessarily provide for you. You might have to, after your 6 weeks is up, go work or whatever your thing is. But I will take care of that child the way I would if I owned them, if I adopt them, if I had guardianship over them. But I will not overstep and take that ownership, take that guardianship, take that right away from you. You will have the legal right to your child for as long as you want it. And I got this baby's back because that's what I'm talking about doing anyway when I was talking about adoption. If that's not an option in your head, if that's not the offer you give to birth mom before you go into, I'll just take the kid, I think something's wrong. I think something is so wrong with our churches. I think something's so wrong with our religious organizations. I think something is so wrong with our society. And before I go on this rant, I have 40 seconds left before this video ends. It allows me to shoot in like 20-minute spurts. But anyway, it's been long enough. Hopefully this video has been somewhat beneficial. If not, then I'm sorry you wasted probably about an hour or more of your time. But I did want to make this video. It's meaningful to me, and again, I hope it's beneficial. Please comment. Keep things not hateful, but please comment. I'd really like to know you guys' thoughts. Until next time, Emir to Hashem, if God wills. Bye, everyone.